the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Carolina Panthers on the road, where Carolina, they won the NFC South division, so they get to host this game at home. But if you recall earlier this season, the spread right now, the Rams are favored by 10.5, but Carolina did beat the Rams earlier this season, 31-28 in Week 13, in a shocking win nobody really expected coming, where Matthew Stafford, the quarterback for the Rams, who is the MVP favorite right now, he threw 2 interceptions in that game and also had a lost fumble on which should have been the game-winning touchdown drive for them, but they could not get it done late. Those 3 turnovers really came to bit them at the end. And including that loss, the Rams, for some reason, they ended up stumbling to the finish line. They lost 3 of their last 5, including a loss to Atlanta, which the Falcons, they didn't even make the playoffs this year, so that was another head-scratcher for them. But I still do think that they are a great team, especially offensively. Their defense just really was out of whack when it came to the game against Carolina and Atlanta, so they really need to step up if they want to actually take care of business come Saturday. But for the Rams, they're also getting their healthy receivers back because Devontae Adams, who has been missing, who missed the last 2 games with a hamstring injury, is back. And that tandem with him and Puka Nacua, they're probably one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver duo in the NFL this year, where Puka, who has been absolutely incredible, he has led all receivers with 129 catches and over 1,700 receiving yards with 10 touchdowns, while Devontae Adams remarkably led all players with 14 receiving touchdowns despite missing 3 games. So that's pretty remarkable to still lead in the touchdown category. But for the Rams, they really need to get their rushing attack going against the Carolina defense that is really kind of below average when it comes to stopping the run. And they can do so with their duo of Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. And Kyron Williams has been pretty solid this year. He's accounted for over 1,500 total yards and 13 total touchdowns, while Blake Corum has also had a very solid year with almost 750 yards and 6 touchdowns. And like I said, Carolina versus the run has been pretty below average, and they rank 20th in yards per game allowed with 123, and they allow 4.4 yards per carry, which is good for 23rd in the NFL. So really not ideal. But to give them credit a little bit, Bryce Young, their quarterback for the Panthers, has had a career year. He has had a career best 23 passing touchdowns, 63.6% completion percentage, and 188.2 yards per game, which is great for him career-wise, but those are still kind of just average or slightly below average numbers. But it's good that he's improving and making strides. He was very highly touted. He was a former number 1 overall pick, so they expect a lot from him in Carolina. But in terms of scoring, the Rams are nothing to mess with. They are the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL, averaging over 30 points per game. And they also have the second best point differential with plus 172 in that category. Meanwhile, Carolina, like I said, they are 8-9. They have a losing record, and they are also minus 69 in point differential, which is 4th worst from any playoff team in NFL history. So that's really, really bad. And the spread, like I said, is 10.5 in this one. I kind of like the Rams to cover if they can take care of business because, like I said, in that early regular season game, the Panthers relied on 3 turnovers in that one. I don't think that happens again, so I like the Rams in this one. But looking ahead to the NFC North in a very heated rivalry with the Green Bay Packers taking on the Chicago Bears. Now, this is the longest NFL rivalry to date in history, but they have only ever played each other 3 times in the playoffs, counting this one. So 2 previous encounters in 1941 and 2010. And that 2010 game was the NFC Championship where the Packers went on to the Super Bowl that year. So that is really something that Chicago fans probably want to forget. But in terms of the history between these two and the way their seasons have gone, they split their season series in the regular season against each other, and they played each other twice in the span of 3 weeks, which is the divisional schedules are kind of weird with the NFL, and I don't agree that should happen, but I guess I don't know, they kind of saved those for the end. But the first matchup saw the Packers win 28-21 in a pretty close game, one-score game. But then in Week 15, they lost to the Bears in overtime, where they blew a 16-6 lead to lose 22-16 in overtime. And that ultimately cost the Packers the division. They kind of stumbled their way to the playoffs. They're 9-7-1 to finish the regular season. They did have that 40-point tie against the Dallas Cowboys earlier this year. But for Chicago, this is their first division win in the NFC North since 2018. And they started the season 0-2, and in their last 15 games after that, they went 11-4, and that fourth loss was in the last regular season game where they sat their starters and kind of didn't care. So really, they went 11-3 in their last 14, which is pretty remarkable to almost have the number 1 seed, but unfortunately that went past them once they lost to the San Francisco 49ers in a barn burner of a game where they lost 42-38, and they had a chance to win the game with 4 seconds left. They were on the 2-yard line, but the San Francisco 49ers got a stop. They forced an incompletion, which ended the game. But the Bears could have had the number 1 seed if they won that game, but that was a great, great game that went down to the very last second and last play. But for Green Bay, like I said, they are kind of stumbling. It really, really hurt them once they lost Micah Parsons to a season-ending knee injury, who they traded for from the Dallas Cowboys, if you can remember, which was a blockbuster of a trade right before the season started in August. And he pretty much revolutionized their defense, but he is now out the remainder of the playoffs and might eat into a little bit of next year, so hopefully he recovers a little bit. But you could clearly see that the loss of him was showing. They gave up 75 combined points against the Denver Broncos and the Baltimore Ravens, so they really were struggling without him. And for Jordan Love, their quarterback, he at least is coming back because he was dealing with a concussion, and this year he has been a lot more efficient with the football because this year he's completed 66% of his passes for almost 3,400 yards, 23 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions. So he's making a lot more smarter decisions with the football. But in this one, I think that Chicago, especially their defense, the way they've been playing lately, they allowed less than 19 points in their last 3 home games, I believe. And I think the same reigns true here. I think especially in a divisional matchup where things are kind of tighter and tightly contested, I think this will be a low-scoring, kind of grinded-out game where Chicago comes out on top. Looking to the AFC, we have the Buffalo Bills taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this one is a pretty confusing game if you are just now keeping up with the NFL and the postseason specifically, because the Jaguars, newsflash, they went 13-4 in the regular season, which is nobody really expected. It kind of went overlooked because people don't think they're for real, but we'll see what they're made of. They're hosting a home game in the playoffs against the Bills, which are looking to reach the promised land in the Super Bowl. And Trevor Lawrence for the Jacksonville Jaguars, he has actually been really, really solid, especially over the last stretch of the season. And they're on an 8-game win streak where he has accounted for 24 touchdowns during that time period. So he has been balling in that stretch. But Buffalo, on the other hand, they are in terms of playoff history, they have the second longest active loss on the road stretch in the playoffs among any NFL team, and with 8 playoff road losses in a row. And Josh Allen, since he became the quarterback of the Bills, is 0-4 on the road in the playoffs in his career. So he is really looking to rewrite history here and pick up that first win and hopefully get the first of many throughout this playoff run, because, again, they're looking Super Bowl here. They're not looking to get a first-round win and then, all right, see you later, They really want to get back to the Super Bowl, or at least put themselves in a position to be there. But I think that one way they can do that is if they rely on the run with running back James Cook. And fun fact, when he runs for 100+ yards in games this season, the Bills are 8-1. So there's a very high correlation when it comes to leaning on the run game and winning the game. So I think that's what they need to do. Meanwhile, Buffalo's defense has kind of struggled against the run. They have allowed 7.3 yards per carry, and that has been really, really bad for these last few weeks, and especially in those games against the Patriots and the Browns. They won both of those games, but the fact that they were that close should not have been a thing, in my opinion. And for Jacksonville, their running game of their own has been pretty okay. They really haven't established if they want to lean in on that because they've thrown a lot this year. But I think they can benefit from relying on that run, especially against a weak Bills run defense with Travis Etienne, who has rushed for over 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns. But their secondary for Buffalo is one of the best in the league, and if they can somehow stop the run and force the Jaguars to pass, I don't think they'll be able to keep up with the Bills. So I like Buffalo in this spot, especially with the reigning MVP, like I said, Josh Allen, who's accounted for over 4,200 total yards and 39 total touchdowns. So he has been a beast this season. So I like Buffalo in this spot. But rapid fire round here, we're running out of time a little bit. We have the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles controversially rested their starters in the last game and cost themselves the 2nd seed, which they would have faced Green Bay, so not really sure you're in a better position if that happens. But the Philadelphia Eagles, they kind of been up and down all year. They had one stretch where they won 3 games in a row, and then they also had a stretch where they lost 3 games in a row. So they've kind of been up and down. But the San Francisco 49ers, if they continue to lean on Christian McCaffrey, who is among the best players in football, I think they can come out and at least make this game close. They are 4.5-point underdogs in here. But I kind of like San Fran to cover this one, especially against what I think is an inferior Philadelphia Eagles team. The New England Patriots are taking on the Los Angeles Chargers, and both of these quarterbacks, Justin Herbert and Drake May, are looking for their first career playoff wins. And if history shows anything, one of these will come out with one. I mean, it pretty much has to, right? But if you look at the previous years where the last playoff wins for each team, New England's last home playoff win came in 2018, which was the first of their 2018 Super Bowl run, which capped off with the Rams in the 13-3 game. But their last home win for that year was coincidentally against the Chargers. Meanwhile, the Chargers, this is their 2nd straight year in the playoffs, with their last playoff win period being in 2018 in that same year. But Justin Herbert for the Chargers, he has thrown for over 4,200 yards and 28 total touchdowns, but he has 13 interceptions, so he really has to keep that low and limit the mistakes against this Patriots team, which has been among the best in the AFC all year. Meanwhile, Drake May has accounted for over 4,800 total yards, 35 total touchdowns, and just 8 interceptions. He is heavily involved in the MVP race right now. A lot of people think he should be the MVP, including me, but we'll see. I think that the Patriots at home can take care of business here and get things done, so I like the Patriots to advance against a Chargers team that kind of scares me a little bit as a Patriots fan, but I think they can get things done. And the last game on the list on the Monday night slate is the Houston Texans taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers arguably might not even be here if Baltimore hits that potentially game-winning field goal in the last game in a regular season. But the Pittsburgh offense has been kind of mid the whole season, where they're averaging just 306.5 yards per game, which is good for 25th in the NFL. But albeit their best offensive performance came in that game against Baltimore, so maybe they're getting hot at the right time. We'll see. But Houston, they are currently riding a 9-game win streak, and they have huge wins during that streak, including wins over Jacksonville, Buffalo, and the Chargers, who are all playoff teams. So they absolutely deserve to be here, and I think that is a huge part of their defense and carrying them to be in this position. And I think the same goes here, where I think they not steamroll the Steelers, but I think they take care of business. And I don't think this one will be a last possession field goal kind of game, but I could be wrong, We'll see. For Houston, they're averaging just 22. They're only 22nd in rushing yards per game, but their offensive line is tied for 8th fewest sacks allowed. So if they can just keep C.J. Stroud, their quarterback, upright and rely on their defense to take care of business, I think that's exactly what will happen.